Hey, are you planning on moving to Kelowna this year or in 2026? Well, then this video is going to be perfect for me. Every week I have people reaching out to me from the lower mainland, the island, Calgary, Winnipeg, Ontario, even overseas, and often I'm getting asked the same type of question. So in this video, I'm going to go over the top 10 questions I'm most often being asked to help make your move here even simpler and to shed light on what it's like to live and to move to Kelowna, British Columbia. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to go over the number one question I'm constantly being asked. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so first off, let's start off with an easy one. And it's a question that I'm honestly asked a ton, and that's, what's the weather like here? You know, it's probably going to be different no matter where you're coming from, because I feel like this is a very unique climate compared to anywhere else in Canada. And arguably, I could say it is the best climate in Canada. Now, I know that probably seems like a biased opinion, but when you look at things, the next best climate is probably going to be the coastal climate in the lower mainland in the island. But the problem with that is obviously it rains a ton. Kelowna doesn't get that. Now, compared to Ontario, Alberta, Saskatchewan, pretty much anywhere out east, it's going to be a much better and more desirable climate. The best part about living in Kelowna and the Okanagan is we have beautiful, hot, dry, long summers that stretch anywhere from early March to middle of October. We have gorgeous fall weather. We have a nice early spring. And the best part is we have a short winter. I'm a four seasons type of guy, and the Okanagan provides you with that four season living, but at a much milder degree compared to the rest of Canada, excluding the lower mainland. You know, you're in some places like where I grew up in Northwestern Ontario, where you're often getting almost 8 months of winter. Here, it is not like that. Your springs here can start as early as the end of February, when the summer kicks in. Is long, hot, dry, sometimes incredibly hot. That is one thing to note for if you're not great at heat, which I can't really handle the heat that well. The one caveat there is it's a nice dry heat compared to, you know, out east or even the coastal climate where you have that 90+% humidity and it's 30+ degrees out. That's the real killer. Here you have a nice hot, dry climate. Yeah, it gets above 30. Yeah, it gets above 35 sometimes, but you go into the shade and the temperature drops off 10 degrees. Now, your summer can stretch as long, like I said, when I said to the middle of October, I guess that's including fall, but summer can realistically stretch until the end of September. Then you hit that fall, which is beautiful, a bit shorter, goes sometimes till the end of November, and then winter hits. Generally, winter is December to mid to end of February. I mean, I have been outside playing tennis in shorts and a t-shirt on Valentine's Day, but every year's a little bit different. Last year was a year we had absolutely no snow, probably the most mild winter I've ever experienced. But I have also been here where November 1st, the snow starts and it doesn't really stop. We're still hovering in the winter around 0 to maybe -5 degrees, kind of +5, 0, -5. And generally we get a 2-week cold snap in the middle of January at some point. The one thing I will say is the winters here are very gray. You get the low hanging ceiling coming down. But the best remedy for that is head up to Big White on a bluebird day, get some sunshine, and just know you have a long summer ahead of you. Comparatively to the East Coast, where you have brutal -40, long winters where you could get snowfall at the beginning of June, I'm going to take Kelowna any day. And compared to the lower mainland, we get so much less rain than there. And on average, they're probably going to be warmer than us on a whole, but they get so many more days of rain, and that lifestyle is just not for me. So if that's for you, lower mainland may be more preferable. But I think for the majority of people, the Okanagan is arguably the best climate in Canada. Okay, moving along, question number 2. And it is another question that I get often asked because people have maybe heard the buzz. And that is, what are the short-term Airbnb rental restrictions currently in Kelowna and British Columbia? So back in 2024, around May 1st, British Columbia instated a restriction on short-term Airbnb rentals. And basically, they took all the short-term Airbnb rentals and they reduced them to only allowing places to operate as a short-term Airbnb style rental in your primary residence. So this was a huge shock to everyone because not only did BC instate that provincial regulation, then Kelowna city and municipality doubled down and they pretty much said, unless you currently have an operating Airbnb that has a license and it is your primary residence, there are no more Airbnbs allowed in your primary residence moving forward, and there are no secondary residences that can have Airbnb. So you think about all the purpose-built condos that were built mainly for Airbnb type style living. All those people who invested in them, bought them in the early phases, were in a huge pickle because they bought something maybe a couple years before thinking, oh, this is going to be a great investment, it's going to cash flow. And then all of a sudden the rug was pulled out from under them and they're no longer allowed to operate that moving forward. So they either had to sell their property or they had to rent it out as a long-term rental. I mean, mean, in terms of the rental market, it definitely helped improve, but meddling in what people can do if they're following the rules with your property that you yourself have purchased, I think it's a bit silly. So because of that, we had a huge influx of condos on the market, and still right now is a great time if you're looking to buy a condo because it's a buyer's market. We have a large oversaturation of inventory for condos, and it did bring up the vacancy from the peak of COVID when it was almost 0% to now we're sitting at about 5 to 6%. And the good thing is Kelowna did roll back some of the restrictions. So you are allowed in Kelowna now to run a short-term Airbnb style rental in your primary residence. Obviously, you have to follow all of the rules and regulations imposed by the province and the municipality, but they did start to roll things back a bit. I do foresee them eventually, not just Kelowna, but BC, rolling back on some of the restrictions they place on short-term Airbnb, but it's not something you can bank on. Don't buy a property with the thought that they're eventually going to roll back the Airbnb restrictions, because again, it can go either way. And the fact that they even did this in the first place just shows how little power you have. So you can't just buy a property with the thought that it can only work and only positive cash flow as a short-term Airbnb. You have to think that it can work both as an investment in a long-term, your primary residence, or short-term. So yes, we do have restrictions, and it is absolutely something you need to be aware of when moving here, especially if you plan to invest. Okay, question number 3. How hard is it to find a primary doctor or GP for you and your family? Well, kind of like the vacancy and rental rate, it used to be much more difficult. In the peak of COVID and kind of the fallout for several years after that, there were no clinics here where you could find a primary care physician. I mean, I had the GP that I was connected with all of a sudden move. I didn't even get notice or an email, and then I was just out a doctor for quite a long period of time. And it was kind of in the peak when it was hard to find a doctor. Now, like the vacancy rate, a lot of that pressure has eased. I think the health authority kind of put in some urgency and attracted more doctors to come here, which to me, I don't know why it'd be hard to get a doctor to come here. They get to live in paradise and they're a doctor and they're going to have lots of clients. But that difficulty in finding a primary care physician has definitely lessened. Now there's several clinics that you can access where they are accepting new clients. Some of the current clinics that I'm aware of from the last time we looked, and I got this from my wife who is working for the health authority, is Springbok Medical, Ace Pro Medical, EB Medical, and West KN Rutland and Medicare Clinic. And if you want to find what clinics are accepting clients and to get registered, you can register on Healthcare Connect on the Okanagan Primary Care Network, and I'll put the link down in the description below. All right, and question number 4. People are always asking me this: is Kelowna safe? And the short answer is yes, it is. And I can honestly say with confidence that I think there has been improvement. I mean, the stats are going to show that I'm going to go over, but there has been an improvement in the safety, the crime rate, and the homelessness. You know, I moved here back in 2013 and the homelessness wasn't a gigantic issue when I first moved here. And I was working in mental health community, so boots on the ground, working with this clientele. And over those first 5-6 years that I was living here, I actually saw the issue get larger and larger until it peaked probably 3 years ago, where now we have it's our own tent city. Leon used to be filled with homeless people, and we've had to keep creating these resources to help manage it. But in the last year and a half, I would say the homelessness situation has gotten better. We have more supportive housing. We've kind of contained Tent City and put some regulations on them, so it's not just spread out all over town. I mean, there are some areas that I would still recommend probably not purchasing by or not walking alone by yourself. But for the majority, I feel like Kelowna overall is an incredibly safe city to live in. Now, I know there are huge issues, and especially like you see, Vancouver has always been known for its East Hastings and its homelessness problems. But now I'm hearing the safety issues with places like Victoria and how their homeless population is continuing to grow and is kind of getting out of control. I think Kelowna, for at least a foreseeable future, has kind of peaked in that aspect. I don't want to say we found a solution, but I feel like we're definitely moving in the right direction, which is great. Now, looking at the statistics, you can actually see over the last year a notable drop in overall crime. The Kelowna Census Metropolitan Area, which includes West Kelowna, Lake Country, Peachland, and West Bank First Nations, saw an 8.78% reduction in total crime compared to 2023. Violent crimes are down 1.96%, while non-violent crimes dropped 11.6%. The Crime Severity Index, which weights crime by seriousness, decreased by 10.85% in all categories, and there are fewer property crimes and business break-ins. Property crimes dropped by 2%, but more impressively, business-like break-ins fell by 31% and residential break-ins by 15%. So as you can see, I get the overall sense and feel that Kelowna is getting safer as the years go on. but we have the stats to prove it, which I think is a huge positive bonus for us. All right, question number 5. And this is a question that probably could have been the number one question I get asked, especially people that are unfamiliar with the area. And it's definitely something that's heavily influenced by the media. And it's, how bad are the wildfires here? How specific is that to a Kelowna problem? And I've been saying this in a lot of videos, and I really stand strongly behind this point, is it's not a Kelowna specific problem. It's not an Okanagan specific problem. It's a North America problem for sure. And I'm not really sure why Kelowna has kind of been labeled as the wildfire capital, because it's absolutely not. Especially you look at the last few years. I mean, there's been several years since I've moved here that were completely unaffected by smoke, barely affected by the wildfires. This year I went home to visit my family north of Winnipeg, and it was smoky. They have drastic fires in northern Manitoba, northern BC, northern Alberta. Now, obviously, we have had some very severe wildfires back in 2003, and of course, the West Kelowna fire just a few years ago in 2023. So I'm not saying we're unaffected by it. It's just not a Kelowna specific problem. This year and last year, I would say, are probably some of the best fire seasons we've had specifically in Kelowna, where we've been almost unaffected by smoke, unaffected by any large scale wildfires in the area. But again, I'm not saying it's not an issue here. It's just not a Kelowna specific issue that the media might lead you to believe. I have people who have almost written Kelowna and the Okanagan off specifically because of this wildfire issue, which, again, if it's a big concern of yours, it's something you definitely want to look into, but I don't think it's something that should prevent you from moving here and living here. Otherwise, if you look at it, there are going to be very few places in Canada that are going to be right for you, because realistically, everywhere in Canada at some point is slightly affected by these wildfires, if not dramatically affected. So I know this is something I keep going over in a lot of my videos, especially addressing Kelowna, but it's something I want to make clear. Wildfires, they can be an issue here, but not a Kelowna and Okanagan specific issue. All right, before we move on to the next question, I just want to stop you guys quickly, because if you are planning on moving to Kelowna, or you currently live here and you're looking to lay down some roots and you have questions, you want to figure out which areas are going to fit your lifestyles, you want to learn more about the area, or more importantly, you want to figure out which areas absolutely aren't going to fit your lifestyle, then you got to reach out to me. You can call me, text me, email me at the information on the screen right now, linked in the description down below, or there's a 30-minute free consultation where you can book a time with me. We can sit, I can answer any questions you have. I'm connecting with people every single week from all over the country and outside of the country that I help out, and I would love to do the same for you. So make sure you reach out. And now let's move on to the next question. Okay, the next question I often get, and this is when people are specifically looking to move here, utilize my services, but this also goes if you're using any realtor probably in the area, and it's, what is my commission? What are the fees that I'm going to have to pay when purchasing real estate with the realtor here in BC and specifically Kelowna? Now, that's the nice part about helping people out, especially as a relocation specialist, is when you use me as a realtor, you get all my resources, but you don't have to pay me anything. My commission comes purely from the seller. So the fees that you're really gonna have to be concerned of are pretty minimal in terms of purchasing real estate. I mean, you're gonna have to consider things like, if you're getting a lawyer, that can be anywhere from $2,300 to $2,800, depending on the complexity of the deal. Home inspection, which realistically you're looking at $350 plus, and that really is based on the size of the home. And of course, if it's a little more complex, it's probably gonna be more expensive. But the biggest fees you are gonna have to consider, and is different than a lot of other provinces, are the taxes. And the two main taxes that you're going to have to deal with when moving here is, number one, the property transfer tax. So that's a pretty significant fee. There are some exemptions if you're a first-time home buyer, and I'm going to leave a link down in the description so you can learn more about it. But in general, it's a tax that you're going to have to pay, and the way it's calculated is on the purchase price. So it's 1% on the amount up to $200,000, 2% on the remainder up to $3 million, and then 3% after that. So again, pretty significant. You're looking between $15,000 and $20,000 on $1 million purchase, which is around our average. And then if it's a new build, you have to consider implications like GST, which is obviously 5% tax. And of course, with GST, there are exemptions for that as well. They have actually just raised the amount for new builds exemption you can see here for GST. But you have to really have that as a consideration, because if you're buying a brand new home that's worth $1.5 million, it's going to have property transfer tax and GST, and that's going to be upwards to an extra $100,000 on your purchase. So pretty incredibly significant, and you have to make sure you're accounting for that when you're looking for a home when you're getting a mortgage. Okay, question number 7, and that is, what is the rental market like here? And do I help with rentals? The rental market is much better than it was from, say, 2020 to 2022, when there was less than a 1% vacancy rate. I kind of touched on this, where now our vacancy rate is between 5 and 6%. So it's much easier to get into a home. Rents have kind of leveled out, if not gone down slightly. And it's hard to give you an average for rent because each area, each type of property you're looking at, whether it's a condo, townhouse, a suite in a single family home, or an entire single family home, is going to be much different and vary in price. And now a question I get asked a lot, especially with people from Ontario, is do I help with rentals? Because out there, often the agents are also property managers. Here, you have to have a different license from a real estate agent to a property manager. And if you don't, you cannot dive into or help out with rentals at all. But the nice thing about that is you really don't need a property manager if you're moving out here, and whether you're buying and planning on renting first or just looking to purely rent. There are 3 kind of main resources you can look for a rental, and you can just deal directly with the landlord, save yourself some fees and save yourself some hassle. I'm going to link those resources down in the description, but those are going to be rentals.ca, CasaNet Classifieds, and of course, Facebook Marketplace. With those resources and the ease of finding a rental here, it's going to be no problem to do it on your own without the help of a property manager. So quick way to save you some bucks. All right, now question number 8 that I get asked a lot is, when I'm moving to Kelowna, when I'm moving to the Okanagan, do I need a car? The short answer, the easy answer for that is yes. Of course, if you're living downtown, you're working from home, you don't have the desire to explore the Okanagan, sure, you don't need a vehicle. You can manage with the transit system. But on a whole, the easy answer to me is just to say yes. Our transit system, although improving, isn't exactly robust right now. We don't have a C train, a Sky train that's going to bring you from one end of the city to the other. We do have a bus transit system. I've heard people kind of groan and complain about that it's not as great as a lot of other cities they've been to. So if you're coming to the Okanagan, you don't have to move around much. You can probably manage without a car. But if you're living here, maybe in one of the suburbs, you're not exactly downtown, you're in West Kelowna, for example, or you just want to explore the Okanagan as a whole, it's going to be much better for you if you have a car and make your life a whole lot easier. And to me, one of the beauties of living here in the Okanagan, besides the town you choose, is actually exploring outside of that and really taking everything in. So if you're coming here, I do highly recommend a car. Pro tip too, I've heard that BC insurance with ICBC is a lot higher than other provinces. At this point, I can't really remember what I was paying when I was, first moved out here in 2013. But a pro tip is have your driver's history prepared when you get quotes on insurance and that, because they deduct the amount that you're paying every month based on how good your driver's history is. So if you come here and you first get an initial quote and you don't provide any driver's history, it could seem really expensive, but for every year that you provide, the discount just keeps piling on. So that's a pro tip to save yourself a little bit of money on property managers and insurance for your vehicle when you're moving here. Okay, question number 9, and a bit more of a nuanced question I get asked for people relocating here is, which neighborhoods are going to fit my family and I's lifestyle, and what schools are going to be best for our family? And for that, again, I've said it already, but I recommend you reaching out to me, because I think the Okanagan as a whole can fit about every single lifestyle that I've come across, and there's always going to be a neighborhood or a town that works best for you. To me, it's a bit more of a process of elimination. I think the Okanagan, every single town can probably match with your lifestyle. So it's a lot easier when I get to know what your needs are, what specific lifestyle you are going for. Do you need to be near school? Do you need to be near a hospital? Do you want to be more rural? Do you want to be in the downtown hustle and bustle? Do you want some privacy? That way I can start to at least eliminate some neighborhoods or towns or areas to make the process a little more simpler and help you find at least a couple choices that are going to match what you're looking for. And like I said, each city has its own variety of neighborhoods that have unique lifestyles. I mean, they all share a lot of similar characteristics, but if someone's looking for more rural, I might recommend them a place like Ellison, Joe Rich, Southeast Kelowna. Or if they want to be a little more central, I might recommend a place like Kelowna North and South, or Springfield and Spall. Again, it's more of a feeling out process and a conversation I have to have with you to understand what your needs are. And then it's very simple to point you in the right direction, because if you're aware of the towns, you're aware of the different neighborhoods, you kind of understand what the Okanagan's about, you'll realize that there's something for everyone here. And that's kind of the beauty of where we live in this beautiful area here. All right, now to round out with a number 10, and the number one question I get asked for people looking to relocate here and move here that I often get is Kelowna expensive? And again, it's a question that I don't really answer yes or no, because to me, it depends on where you're coming from. Are you coming from Toronto and Vancouver? Then it's going to be more affordable. Are you coming from Saskatchewan, Manitoba, or Alberta? Then yeah, Kelowna is going to be a little more expensive for you. Absolutely. Kelowna kind of ranks, I would say, on average in the middle in terms of most expensive cities in Canada. Even in BC, I think Kelowna kind of sits in the middle. You have more expensive places like the Lower Mainland and the island. And although BC as a province and as a whole is the most expensive province you can live in, I'd say Kelowna kind of sits more in line with the middle, with cities more like Calgary. And from what I've heard, it's similar to a lot of Southern Ontario places. And for a more in-depth answer to really get into the meat and potatoes of what it costs to live here, I need you guys to check out my video. I do one of them every year on the cost of living here in Kelowna, where I break down lifestyles from going out to eat, groceries, gas, property taxes, and really nail down an answer for you. But the easiest way I can answer it is BC. Everyone always says, I've said it in too many videos, stands for bring cash. It's an expensive province. Kelowna, I would say, probably ranks somewhere in the middle, maybe just above the middle in terms of average price for BC cities. I mean, when you look at it, the average price for a single family home usually hovers around $1 million. For all product, you know, when you're looking at condos, townhouses, and single family homes combined, the average price for everything here is usually in between $700,000 and $750,000 on average. And if you want to save yourself some money, the Okanagan has a wide range of prices you can choose from, where if you don't want to live in the main city of Kelowna, you have West Kelowna has a little more affordability. You have the small towns like Peachland, Summerland, Osoyoos that have a ton more affordability. But if you still want to live in a city, there's places like Penticton and Vernon that on average are $250,000 to $300,000 less than that of Kelowna. So again, there are going to be options for you here. Now, when you're looking what prices and home prices were from the peak, where things got really crazy and kind of peaked out in 2021, 2022, I mean, most neighborhoods are on average down anywhere from 11 to 20% from the peak of the market. We've kind of flattened out now. I don't see them really dipping much more than they are here. So if you're moving here, especially this year or next year, you can expect prices to be similar to what they are now. And again, if you want to stay in tune with that, make sure you subscribe to my other channel where I do a monthly market report every single month to keep you in tune and keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening in terms of real estate here in the central Okanagan. So when people reach out to me, they ask a lot of questions. I probably haven't answered even a quarter of them in this video, but these are the questions I find that come up the most when I'm talking to someone who's looking to lay down some roots here or looking to relocate here. So I just wanted to do this video to kind of shed some light on the most common questions that I get. But as I'm sure there are, if you have any questions, maybe something I didn't touch on or I didn't answer in this video, I want you to reach out to me. Call me, text me, email me at the information on the screen right now, linked in the description down below, or just go straight ahead and click that link down in the description. Book yourself a free 30-minute consultation. We can meet together. I can answer any questions you have, get you set up on a proper search, maybe help you narrow down some of the neighborhoods or even towns that you might be considering to match with your lifestyle when moving out here. And something I really want people to know, because again, I have people reaching out to me all the time, even if it's a 2 to 3 or even 5-year plan that you're considering moving out here, there's no harm in reaching out early, doing your due diligence ahead of time, and then I can set you up on my monthly market report, and you can keep an eye on the videos that are coming up to, again, keep a finger on the pulse, understand what's happening here in Kelowna, in the Okanagan, and in our market to best set yourself up for the move here and make your transition here even simpler. Again, make sure you check out the rest of my videos if you're planning on moving here. I got neighborhood tours, cost of living videos that I discuss, and a ton of more information on living in Kelowna, moving to Kelowna and the Okanagan and the surrounding towns. So make sure you subscribe to my channel. Again, my name is Brett Baholey, your Okanagan real estate professional and relocation specialist. This is my channel, Living in Kelowna, BC, and I will check you in the next video.